The glossy ibis is a water bird in the order Pelecaniformes and the ibis and spoonbill family Threskiornithidae. This species is a mid-sized ibis. It is 48 to 66 centimeters long, with an 80 to 105 centimeters wingspan. It is a migratory bird. The bird was recognized as a migratory bird in 1995. Long, curved bill. Adults mostly dark with iridescent green and reddish tones. Very thin white border surrounding the dark facial skin. Usually gregarious, it is found mainly in salty marshes and shallow wetlands. The plumage appears dark, almost blackish at a distance or in poor light. At close range, much of the body is maroon, with the wing coverts showing metallic green, bronze, and violet tones. This long-legged, long-billed bird forages in flocks through wetlands and wet agricultural fields, searching for insects, small fish, and seeds. The birds are somewhat nomadic, dispersing widely after the nesting season. A tendency that has aided the species in the past 100 years as it has expanded its range from the southeastern U.S. to include much of eastern North America. Glossy ibises occur in flocks, both at nesting colonies and when foraging. They typically feed by lowering the bill into water, mud, or soil, to feel for prey, and they often feed among many other species of wading birds. Glossy ibises frequent almost any wetland environment with shallow water or exposed mud and also readily feeds in farm fields or open areas where soils are moist. Glossy ibises nest in colonies, often among other species of ibis, heron, egret, or spoonbill. Colonial nesters have the advantage of many extra sets of eyes looking out for predators. Colonies might also be places where highly gregarious species like ibises can share information about the most productive foraging areas. Glossy ibises forage in relatively open freshwater marshes but also frequent brackish and saltwater marshes, mud flats, mangrove swamps, wet agricultural fields, lake or pond edges, sewage treatment areas, and shallow rivers. Even pastures, plowed fields, and highway margins that have soil moist enough to permit probing for earthworms, grubs, and other invertebrates attract ibises. Less often, they forage in dry fields, where they eat insects or grain, such as rice. They nest in shrubs, trees, or marsh vegetation, sometimes far from foraging areas. Glossy ibises are able to forage both by sight and touch. When on dry land pursuing insects or eating grain, they pick and glean food items. They readily consume crops such as rice and sorghum. When in wetlands or wet soil, they use their long bills to probe into the substrate, or sometimes swing the bill, side-like, through water or mud, feeling for prey. They eat a remarkable variety of creatures like leeches, earthworms, grasshoppers, many species of beetles, snails, fish, snakes and lizards. Flocks of glossy ibis forage quite close together, advancing slowly as they probe a muddy area. This activity often attracts snowy egrets and other species of waders, which capture minnows and other prey moving away from the feeding ibis flocks. In tidal areas, Glossy ibis forage most heavily during a falling tide, as prey become increasingly accessible in shallows. Together, both members of a pair build a large, bulky nest near a wetland. The male collects more of the material, which varies from reeds to sticks, depending on what vegetation is available near the nest site. The nest is sometimes on the ground in a reed bed but more often in bushes or short trees, up to about 12 feet above the ground. The nest is a bulky platform of compacted sticks, twigs, or reeds. Pairs add to the nest even after eggs have been laid, sometimes fresh green leaves or grasses. Most nests are about a foot in diameter and vary in thickness from just a few inches to nearly a foot. Three to 4 eggs are laid, and are incubated by both male and female birds for between 20 and 23 days. The young can leave the nest after about 7 days, but the parents continue to feed them for another 6 or 7 weeks. The young fledge in about 28 days. Glossy ibises are highly gregarious throughout their lives, feeding and resting in flocks and nesting in tight colonies where nests are usually no more than 2 feet apart. Pairs defend the immediate vicinity of their nest, attacking other ibises or herons that come too close, but otherwise are rarely aggressive. Courting glossy ibises bow to one another, preen each other, and touch their bills together, rattling them quickly while cooing typically in the vicinity of the nest itself. Glossy ibises fly in flocks that resemble those of cormorants, for which they can be mistaken at a distance. Ibises tend to glide more between bouts of flapping than cormorants do. Foraging birds avoid deep water, but on rare occasions they forage in belly-deep water and have even been observed swimming. Resting birds sometimes sunbathe to warm and dry themselves, raising the wings in an open position. Glossy ibises are found throughout the world. In North America, populations increased by an estimated 4.2% per year between 1966 and 2015. The oldest recorded glossy ibis was at least 21 years old and lived in Virginia between 1971 and 1992. Oil spills, pesticides, wetland drainage, ditching of marshes for mosquito control, and human disturbance are causes of concern for this species.